everybody, and good morning. Happy October 5th. It is Tuesday morning, October 5th. I hope everyone is doing well. We had some wild weather last night. I don't know what it was like for everyone, but I live in Simi, and I loved all the thunder and lightning and like a little bit of rain. My grass was like, oh, thank you. Right, having a little bit of rain falling from the sky. But I don't know if anyone else enjoyed that, but that was a lot of fun. My kids were like, "What's happening? We get lightning here?" Like every now and then, right? But good morning. I see a lot of you putting your names in the chat. That's perfect. Thank you for being on here with me bright and early on a Tuesday morning. Again, I hope everyone's doing well and hanging in there. We're in week number 8. We're almost to the halfway point of the semester. Almost there. It's officially October, the month of candy, right? It's good times, and Brady beat the Patriots on Sunday night, right? So lots of good things, right? All good things. So anyway, make sure you put your name in the chat. We have a kind of usual week this week, a very typical format for today. We'll talk about last week. I'll go over some feedback from week number 7 related to mood disorders. I'll give you some reminders for this week. I want to just mention something that's coming up next week so that you can start thinking about it if you wanted to work ahead. I'll give you the extra credit question and see if you have any questions for me, and then we will call it a day. So yeah, kind of a usual format. Any questions, thoughts, comments, anything before we get started here? Anyone else love the weather last night? I don't know if it stormed everywhere, but again, it was a lot of fun. I felt like a little kid. I was like outside watching the thunder. Yes, I was watching the thunder, watching the lightning, and listening to the thunder. So, yep, just waiting to see here. Everybody getting logged in. Okay. Well, while I wait to see if anyone has any questions or comments or thoughts or anything, let's go ahead and head over to Canvas together and take a look at some of the things that we are looking at today. So as I mentioned, we are in week number 8 officially. So chugging our way along through the semester here. So let's take a look really quickly at week number 7 before we talk about this week. So if we go back to last week we were looking at mood disorders, and as I mentioned, mood disorders, very, very common, second most common group of disorders, with anxiety being the first. And you were in charge of reading and watching the video, and then for the discussion, you were in charge of looking at one of the different antidepressants and talking a little bit about what type it is, what category, and then also listening to the Lithium song. And I love it. Lots and lots of different medications. There wasn't a lot of overlap, which I think was a lot of fun. Many of you chose a wide variety, some very new, some older. Thank you for those of you who added a video. Some of you found commercials, which was fantastic. I love that you shared them. I hope you took a minute when you were watching the commercials to pay attention to the side effects. They're pretty intense. They can be, at least, but also these can be incredibly helpful for people as well. So great job on that. Some of you, I wanted a little bit more. The area where I felt like I wanted a little more for a lot of you was on the lithium reactions, and some of you did a beautiful job of really interpreting the song and the lyrics. She's singing about this love-hate relationship that she has with this drug. She needs it, but she doesn't want to let it pull her down. A lot of people report feelings of being numb and, just not themselves when they're on drugs like lithium, which is a mood stabilizer. But really, overall, nicely done. A lot of you pointing out some great battles and struggles. I loved, the use of lyrics. Some of you used specific lyrics to really help you to illustrate that. So nicely done. Biggest area, again, just not quite giving me enough. So if you find that you're not getting full points, make sure that you're giving me, a very thorough response, that you're answering all the questions and showing off your knowledge and information that you've gained. But most of you did pretty well. And then don't forget to continue to respond to a classmate to get those 2 points as well. So that was last week. And again, I enjoyed the commercial videos and overall pretty well done on the discussion. Just a few of you wanting a little bit more on that lithium song and reactions. If we look at this week, we are in week number 8. We're looking at chapter 7 on suicidality. And so you'll notice there isn't a lecture video for this week. So our health center was supposed to present and do a whole like guest speaker video on something called QPR. It's a training that they offer at the college, but apparently there were some issues in being allowed to do that online. So what I did instead, since this was kind of last minute that this happened, is I created some resources for you and little videos and things that I'd like you to watch and read through. So instead of lecturing on that this week, there's kind of some side stuff for you to look at. So as I said, we were supposed to have the QPR, but they canceled on me because it wasn't okay to do that digitally. So what I want you to do is read over this. There's a little short overview here of what QPR is. Watch the video on warning signs and what you can do to help. And then watch the video about having the conversation with someone who is suicidal. And then read through the resources and check out the web pages for suicidality and getting help. Oh, I wonder what happened to my picture here. I'll have to go back and look at that. But make sure that you watch all the videos and also click on any links and anything that are here. That will be in substitution of me giving you a lecture this week. So very important that you're reading chapter 7 in the textbook. There will be 1 or 2 weeks where instead of me lecturing, you're doing something a little different, and this is one of them. The other, I think, is on the chapter related to childhood disorders. But for this week, make sure that you watch all these videos. Again, click on any links or anything that's in here. I'll fix this image here a little bit later. I'm not sure why it's not there, but it drives me nuts, so I will fix it. So click and watch on everything in here. I posted the slides for you right here, so it might be a good idea as you're also reading the textbook this week to look over the slides. So the slides I've given you do kind of bullet some of the more important information from chapter 7, talking about suicide, different types of suicide or kind of motivations behind it, some patterns and statistics, triggers for people, things that might be triggers or causes, and then looking at links to age, prevention, and then a little bit more about the QPR training at the very end. So again, a little bit different format for this week in the sense that I didn't make a lecture video for you, only because they canceled on me last minute. But I do still have those resources, so hopefully that will make it pretty helpful for you. And then discussion number 8 for this week. What you're looking at is there are 4 different people here, so I'm jumping ahead here. So before completing this week's discussion, make sure you watched all the little videos that I have for you. That will be really helpful when you've read the chapter. And then what are some of the warning signs that someone might be suicidal? Name and describe a few. What are some of the things you could do if you have a friend, partner, family member, or so on that is suicidal? Name and describe a few actions that you could take to help someone if you felt like they were suicidal. The next part of what you'll do is you'll read these 4 little scenarios before related to suicidality, and then you're going to apply what you have learned, ranking the people from 1 to 4. 1 would be the person that you believe is at the greatest risk for attempting or committing suicide, and 4 being the person that you would say is at the least amount of risk. And then I want you to explain your rating. So don't just give me a number, but make sure you explain. So you'll rank Joe, Maria, Amy, and Alex. Tell me which one you think is you're most concerned about to least concerned about, and then make sure that you describe why. And I know these are kind of short little scenarios, but it's enough that I think you could think about what is going on with them and try to get that ranking going. So focusing on warning signs, naming and describing them. Some of the things you could do if you have a friend or partner, family member, and so on that you could help. And really, try and give me some good specific things that you could do. And then ranking these people and explaining why. And I know this can be a really difficult topic. I imagine a lot of you have known someone who has either attempted or maybe even completed committing suicide. And it can be a very emotional thing to think about, so make sure that you are taking care of yourselves as you do think about that, and maybe some of these resources might be helpful for you as well that I gave you in that little lecture resources that I posted. But I could tell you, when I was a therapist, this was something that was always very daunting. You know, whenever I had a client who was suicidal, I always took it very, very seriously. And I've had friends and family members who have been suicidal. It's definitely not something to take lightly. And so I think it's really good to be going over some of these things that you can do to help and identifying some of those warning signs as well. All right. Any, let's see, any questions or comments or thoughts or anything at all so far? Questions, comments, thoughts, anything before we keep going? I'm going to wait just a second because you're usually about 20 seconds or so behind me. All right. While I'm waiting to see if there are any questions or anything like that, let me give you just a couple of quick reminders here. So I'm going to pull up my calendar. So our next... So I'm sorry, I forgot to post this, so I copied and pasted it in. As always, don't forget to check your subscription status. Again, it's only good for 30 days, so a lot of you do fall off at some point. But our next Twitch live stream will be on Tuesday, which is October 12th at 8:30 in the morning. So next Tuesday morning, we will have our week number 9 Twitch live stream. So the 12th at 8:30 in the morning, like usual. And then what I wanted to remind you of, the other thing that I have for you, is I want to talk just for a moment about the second part of the paper. So this week, there's nothing extra due. It's just the discussion and then completing those other materials. But next week, if you look ahead, and you can't access it yet, but if you look ahead, you'll see that the second part of our paper is due next week. And so next week is a little bit heavier in terms of the things that are due. So I just want to let you know that now so you can plan for that. So next week we have chapter 9 that we're covering, and there's a couple of extra videos and presentations to be watching for next week. And so those will pop up for you on Monday. But the second part of the paper is due. So if we go all the way up, we can get those instructions up here for the paper. So if we go to the top where it says course documents and videos, let's take a look at part 2 of the paper just really quickly. Oh, bad gateway, huh? Okay. Well, looks like I have like 2 things to fix here. So make notes for myself. But if you click on it, that's still open, so that's good. So part 2 of the paper is due next week, and I'm looking for about 2 to 3 pages of progress towards your final paper. Now, this still doesn't need to be in any kind of specific formatting. There's no like APA or anything required. That will come later. But you are starting to think about your character. So if you have some second thoughts about your character, now would be a really good time to change. If you wanted to, that's still completely fine. But what I want you to do is to give me like a partially completed paper. Now, this could be bulleted. It could be some paragraphs are written and then you have bulleted thoughts afterward. I'm not as much worried about the formatting as I'm worried about the progress. So the point of this is to get you started and organized so that you don't end up waiting till the last minute for the final paper. And the more that you give me, the more feedback that I can give you. So if you have thoughts about what diagnosis or diagnoses you might want to explore for your character, that might be a good place to start. You might start writing a summary. So your summary is only going to be like 1 to 3 paragraphs in total. So you could start working on that. You could get a character profile going. Like, what are some ways you would describe your character? If you were to paint a clinical picture of your character, what would that look like? You might have some thoughts about the disorders. Maybe you're not sure which ones yet, but you've kind of have a couple of ideas. You could start listing that. So you could list some of the disorders that you're thinking that they might have. Also start listing what are some of the examples in the show that you have that would be good support for your diagnosis. And that can be something that you can get going on as well. If you're not sure about the disorder, you could at least get a list going of like, well, these are some of the things that I thought were abnormal that I'm going to be looking at for a diagnosis. I also want to make sure that you have a source. So the source, this is called the outline and source. It's worth 40 points. And it should be that you have a source for your paper. And the source is worth 10 points. And this is something that the librarian will go over a little bit more next week. But it needs to be an academic source outside of our textbook. So it could be the DSM, it might be an article or a book that you find from our library. But you're going to be using the source to help you with your diagnosis and maybe to help you with discussing treatment. And so you need to have the citation information for that source, and that will be worth 10 points. It's the first thing that I'm going to check for when I open your paper. And again, if you don't have a source, it'll be no points. If you have a non-academic source, then it will be partial credit. But I'm looking that you can have a journal, a book, maybe the DSM. Every single one of you could use the DSM. And you're welcome to have more than one source, but you need a minimum of one. So you only need one, but let's say you really want to use a couple, that's totally fine. If you really want to use a source like Wikipedia or Internet Movie Database or like something that's not academic, that's totally fine as long as you also have an academic source as well. Can we use some of the stuff we said in part 1? Oh, for sure, right? You're building on what you've already created. So you might have a little bit of overlap. That's totally fine. So the focus of the final paper, and you can look at those directions, isn't on the summary of your movie. So again, it's something that I see people mess up on a little bit, sometimes spending too much time talking about the movie or show and the summary. So you might start writing that. You could write like 1 to 3 paragraphs, and then maybe the rest of your paper is bullets. You have a bunch of bulleted ideas about examples from your show or possible diagnoses, stuff like that. Again, I'm more worried about the content than the formatting. So if you give me kind of a mixed paper of paragraphs and bullets, that's totally fine. It can be all bulleted. I'm fine with that. If you are really ahead of the game and you've kind of already written a partial rough draft, you could send that to me, and that's wonderful as well. So again, the more that you give me, the more feedback I'm able to give you. But at minimum, this should be about 2 to 3 pages long, and you need to have that source. That academic source is worth 10 points of the 40, so make sure that you definitely find that. And when we get to next week, you'll see that there is a video from the library. They're going to go over how to find some sources online for you, so that should be really helpful in finding a source for your paper. Okay. I'll go over that again next week, but I just wanted to plant the idea on your mind so that if you wanted to get going ahead of time, you were able to do that. Someone said, should we be talking in first person example? I think this character has bipolar disorder, or from what I've seen, obviously I'm not an English professor. I married one. I'm married to an English teacher, but I just want you to pick a consistent stance, right? So as long as your writing doesn't interfere with your paper in any way, it won't be something that you lose points for. But I think what might be smart would be for you to like take it from like a third person. But again, I'm fine with either as long as you pick one and you consistently run with it. Someone said, I'm not in your class, not attending the school. Yes, this is a class from Moore Park College. You're welcome to stay if you want, as long as you're respectful. I don't mind. So I think that's everything that I want to say for now about the paper. Any other questions at all about the paper that I can answer for any of you? Mm-hmm. I'll wait just a minute, and while I'm waiting for you to see if there are any other questions, and again, I will go over this again next week. I just wanted to make sure that you were able to start now if you were interested. So let me give you the Twitch extra credit question for this week, and this is something that came up multiple times in the little lecture and content things that I have given to you. So the question for you for this week is, what does QPR stand for? This is something you'll definitely see on the exam, and I want to make sure it's on your mind. So what does QPR stand for? And when you're ready to answer that, you will go to the Twitch extra credit number 8 right here and click on it. And then up at the top, hit start assignment. And then you can type your response in the little box and go ahead and hit submit, get your confetti burst and your 2 points. And again, this is due before Sunday night at 11:59 p.m. But if you do it early and get it wrong, you can always try again. But make sure you're doing that. Get those 2 points of extra credit for joining me today. Make sure that you put your name in the chat if you are not subscribed. But otherwise, let me see. Are there any other thoughts, comments, questions, anything else that I can answer for all of you while we're here together today? I've given you I gave you the extra credit question, reminder about next week. We talked about the discussion and the paper. I think that's everything. So I will hang out for a little bit if any of you do have any questions. As a side note, if you ever want to turn in a rough draft of your paper, you're always welcome to do that. I will be happy to read one at any time, as long as it's not the week that it's due, of course. But again, I will hang out for a little bit if there are any thoughts. Otherwise, have a wonderful week. I hope you all enjoy what's going to be cooler weather starting like today and tomorrow. And one of the days it was going to get down into the 60s. I'll take that. That's nice, right? So I hope you all have a wonderful week. And I'm going to minimize my video, but I will hang out for a little bit if you have any other questions. Otherwise, I will hope to see you all next Tuesday morning for our week number 9 live stream. So everyone have a wonderful week. And again, I'll hang out for a little bit if you do have any questions. I don't. I should at some point set up a Discord account, but I do not have one as of now. Just because I only use this for reminders and kind of short lectures. So if I used it more, that would definitely be a good idea. Thank you all as well. Have a wonderful, wonderful week. And I forgot to mention as well, as soon as we're done here, I will, of course, upload the video onto our Canvas page so that you'll be able to watch it.